...2021 was actually a pretty nice year for me gaming-wise. Got Bowser's Fury, Metroid Dread, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, but the biggest thing for me was Deltarune Chapter 2, since I've been waiting for that since, well, the first chapter a few years ago. So, logically, the best thing to do in celebration of that is talk about Chapter 1, 3 years later, halfway through 2022. Okay, so I'm definitely not gonna be the first person to have said this game's release was pretty weird. The date is October 30th, 2018, a bit over a month after Undertale released on the Nintendo Switch, now featuring not only an anime cat girl, but also a creepy clam lady who ominously tells you you're about to meet someone named Susie, while also fueling the never-ending Gaster mystery. Keep note of the name Susie, that's gonna be important soon. Things have been pretty quiet since that release until suddenly, the Undertale Twitter seemingly gets hacked. It starts talking in broken up sentence fragments all in caps, saying strange things like, "Have you been looking for me?" and "something I think you will find very interesting," all capping off with telling you to return there in 24 hours. Lo and behold, 24 hours later, the account starts tweeting again, this time ending by telling something called Deltarune to show itself, followed by 3 links to a website called DELTARUNE.com. All this is interesting since not only is Deltarune an anagram of Undertale, but the Deltarune was a symbol integral to the plot of Undertale. Anyways, besides telling you about flashing images, saying you'll accept everything from now on, and asking you to not talk about the program on the site for 24 hours, the website contains a download for a .exe file called Survey Program that Windows thinks is a virus. You open it and... After opening up the survey program, you're greeted with, well, the survey. The ominous person from Twitter, that people presume to be Gaster, starts talking to you as it has you create this vessel by picking body parts and answering completely normal questions about yourself, like what your favorite blood type is, including C and D. Eventually, it asks for both the vessel's name and your own name before someone else, presumably the first fallen child from Undertale somehow, discards your vessel and says your name is Chris before revealing that it's time to play another Undertale game. No, not Undertale 2. It's not a sequel, it's not a prequel. But instead, it's an entirely separate continuity. The game's still intended for people who've completed Undertale, and it will still have connections to its predecessor, but it's a whole new story. Even though the game isn't a sequel to Undertale, it has so much of Undertale's energy in it. As we wake up in Chris's home, being told by Toriel that it's time for school, we then see a mirror, which is significant for anyone who's played Undertale. Afterwards, there's this amazing car ride that introduces us to the world of Deltarune, which I honestly just have to show you. We get to go to the school where we enter a class taught by Alfies, and we have to get a partner for a group project. After asking around, no one's available to be partners with Chris, but this does introduce Noelle, Holiday, and Birdly, 2 characters who will become very important in Chapter 2. We're talking about Chapter 1 today. After all of this, we're introduced to Susie. Hey, that's the name Clam Girl mentioned in Undertale. You have to get chalk with Susie, who is eating the chalk. This part's strange, I guess. And quiet people piss her off, apparently. She thinks about eating Chris, doesn't, and we're off to get the chalk. There's a spooky closet that absolutely nothing will go wrong in, the door closes, and you get Undertale. Now that we've fallen into the dark world, the game can truly begin. We look completely different, and everything overall looks a lot cleaner now. Just better sprite work across the board. Similarly to Undertale, Deltarune is an RPG that plays around a bit with RPG tropes. These cliffs we start in are a tutorial area of sorts, with an item to collect being the glow shard, which can be sold for more and more money depending on which chapter it's sold in. Another thing introduced here is, unlike in Undertale, there are areas where your soul will become visible in the overworld, and you can be attacked in real time, damaging you outside of battle. I feel like this definitely makes the game better than it would be without it, especially compared to the Undying Chase with the Get Hurt battles. There's also a puzzle to let you know those will be here, and another meetup with Susie, followed by some avoidance before leaving the cliff area. Beyond the cliffs is the castle town, which I'll go into more detail on later. Here we get the battle tutorial featuring explanations on pretty much every part of battles. Assuming you already know how Undertale works, it's pretty similar. You now have multiple party members instead of just one from Undertale, and there's this tension point, also known as TP, gauge on the left. Pretty much everything new revolves around one of these 2 additions, from defending, raising TP, to the new spells and some acts costing it, or even requiring multiple party members. This was written by the same man who created Undertale, so expecting some great story and characters is understandable. With that explained, oh boy, did this first chapter alone deliver in this department. After reaching the castle town, you meet this hood guy who tells you the legend. Essentially, it's less nuanced than its predecessor, being a light versus dark plot where balance is being disrupted by a strange dark fountain that has appeared. So 3 heroes must go and stop it. You get a tutorial battle of sorts showing off the new party battle system, and how, because Susie doesn't listen to you, only attacking, in order to do a pacifist run, you have to warn enemies about Susie so that her attacks miss. All in a battle against this new character, Lancer, after he blows up Hood Guy. Don't worry, he's fine. After that, Lancer flees and Hood Guy introduces himself as Rouxls. Rouxls is supposedly the prince of the castle town, and is many things. Fluffy, kindness-obsessed, and somehow terrifying for some reason. Lancer is essentially the bad guy, even saying this himself. He really wants to impress his dad, the king, and just tries and fails to be evil in various funny ways. It's great to watch. Essentially, you and Rouxls, without Susie, because you ran away, travel through the field, thwarting Lancer. You meet up with Susie again, and yeah, she's basically a mean girl who's really hungry for the entire game. After a fight against a literal checker, Susie joins Lancer because she likes him more than she likes you, and you enter the forest. It's basically the same thing as the field, but the shenanigans consist of both Lancer and Susie instead of just Lancer. There's a smith shaped like a hammer that ends up important later. At the end, you fight Susie and Lancer. Honestly, the entire forest just shows Susie and Lancer bonding, and it's really nice to see them. In the end, both end up joining you before you reach Kaard Castle, where you have this moment where Lancer seemingly immediately betrays the party, locking them up in jail cells. Susie manages to escape, and we get this really emotional scene where Susie feels betrayed by Lancer and tries to kill him. By the end, Susie intentionally misses, not wanting to kill Lancer. Lancer explains that he doesn't want his party to fight his father, and they agree to peacefully deal with the king before freeing you and Rouxls. Now we can enter Kaard Castle proper, which I'll get to later in the video. I'm not redoing that! Also similarly to Undertale, the music of this game is just great. Some of my favorites are the Field of Hopes and Dreams, which is an area theme, The Legend, which specifically plays in an early cutscene, Rude Buster, the main battle theme, and Rouxls Kaard, which plays while some of the best scenes in the game are playing out. Almost all of the music is once again done by the game's creator, Toby. You're guaranteed to find something you like, and there's even some unused tracks that were played during the live stream where they played Deltarune Chapter 1 and announced Chapter 2. Thinking about it, I mentioned how some of this music plays during, in my opinion, some of the best scenes in the game. Let's get into that. This game is hilarious. It always has another joke up its sleeve, just like Undertale. You have Rouxls just exploding after Lancer runs into him. You have the Smith Malleus, whose head is a hammer, fixing you by hitting you with his head, which somehow restores the entire party's HP. And then you have the Thrash Machine. Yes. There's a scene where you have to create a machine to thrash your own ass, building it up as the boss for the area, only for Susie and Lancer to blow it up. And then it comes back during Chapter 2, though I won't talk about how. One of my personal favorites is the scene where you get this amazing dialogue if you attempt to be a box during one of the puzzles. Two of my other favorites are actually characters, being the original Starwalker, who randomly appears to say birds are pissing him off, only for him to appear in Card Castle and then in Chapter 2. And I also love this guy. You can go through Card Castle until you eventually meet the best character in this game, the Duke of Puzzles, Rouxls Kaard. He's actually teased multiple times before Card Castle because he's mentioned by this puzzle guy, by a mini-boss I didn't feel like recording footage for named Clover, and a sign on a puzzle just before the Great Board. You can pretend to be a box in that puzzle, it's great. But yeah, they hype this guy up, and he turns out to be this bumbling idiot who speaks in a horrible old English and fails at everything he does. And I love it. I even amplified the joke every time I played the game by giving him this stupid high-pitched voice. His puzzles fail miserably twice, then he gets a shop and forces you to fight the checker with the tuned legs again. Then he bullshits the excuse of testing you. After this, you can go back to the shop and his dialogue changes to act like he was helping you all along. And he straight up admits that he'll literally change sides the moment he's losing. Honestly, there's not much else to do in Card Castle that I haven't mentioned, so I'm satisfied with this section. Okay, so there actually is one more pretty big thing you can do in Card Castle. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Chances are if you've been on the internet, you already know who Jevil is. He's an optional boss battle that you can attempt in Card Castle, and also the hardest thing in the game. Essentially, you go to his weird cell on its own floor of Card Castle before collecting 3 key pieces. One from Sham, the nihilistic shopkeeper I never mentioned, one locked behind a puzzle in the field, and one hidden in the forest. You take them to Malleus, the smith, and he fixes them. You can open up Jevil's cell, and then you go through this hellish boss fight. Why did you do this, Toby? You can fight him or you can spare him. Each one will get you a different fight ending. He spots something and gives you this thing called a Shadow Crystal. Hey, that seems pretty important. Followed by the Devil's Tail if you beat him through Mercy, or the Devil's Knife if you beat him through attacking. This guy actually gives some pretty interesting Gaster Theory fuel if you talk to Sham afterwards. That's fun. Back to the plot! After dealing with Rouxls Kaard's shenanigans, and Jello if you want, we can go up to the roof of Kaard Castle and finally face off against Lancer's dad, the King. It's a pretty neat fight with some fun patterns. Depending on if you attacked everyone or spared everyone, you get a different ending. If you attacked anybody, Rouxls will put them to sleep. If you befriended every enemy, they'll storm the roof and overthrow him, replacing him with Lancer. After this, you get to say goodbye to everyone. It's actually really wholesome. I mean, there's these things that represent B and O's and O. But it's still really wholesome. Rouxls acts like he did all the work, Lancer talks about being the new king, and once you leave... Wait, Rouxls a goat? What the hell? The end, you get to return to the light world, Susie asks to go back there again, and you can talk to a bunch of people in the hometown. Also, it's sort of revealed that all the people in the dark world were inanimate objects, but sure, okay. I'll show a few interactions I liked here. Afterwards, you get home, and absolutely nothing bad happens. No siree. Everything is fine. The end. Yeah, honestly, I'm not even going to try to get into all the theories about Chris. That's a rabbit hole I do not want to go down.